Have you ever felt like just existing takes up too much space? Like, no matter how hard you try to do everything right, something about you just never felt welcome? This story is about Samantha, but honestly, it could be yours too. Samantha was born on a Sunday in April, and she wasn't supposed to be. It wasn't the right time. She wasn't the kid her parents were hoping for. They never said it straight out, but she heard enough to get the message. If it had been a boy, your dad would have been happier. We already have a girl, right? Now we wanted a little guy. But hey, God knows what he's doing. Just random comments tossed around like jokes in the living room, grandma laughing, mom stirring her coffee, dad shaking his head. For little Samantha, it wasn't funny. It was an unspoken truth that settled in her body like a weight. She couldn't explain it, she just felt it and carried it. At 4, Samantha started noticing that when she cried, no one paid attention. One day, she fell in the yard and scraped her knee. It bled a lot. She got up crying, screaming for her mom. Her mom was on the phone. She screamed again, sobbing. The reply came sharp. "Samantha, stop being so dramatic. You're not dying. I'll look at it later." She just stood there, blood running down her leg, knee throbbing with this wild urge to disappear. Later, her mom dabbed on some rubbing alcohol, made a face, and said, "You really need to stop making a scene over every little thing." From that moment on, Samantha learned to swallow her tears, and with them, the confusion, the pain, the doubt. Because if even her mom wouldn't stop to look, who else would? At 5, she tried to surprise them. She made a drawing of the family. She colored it carefully and left it in her parents' room, waiting for a reaction. Her dad walked in, glanced at it, and said, "What's this on the floor?" "It's our picture," she said, all excited. He looked again and laughed. "Wait, this head is supposed to be me? I look like an alien. Gotta keep practicing, kiddo." She laughed with him, but later she tucked the rest of her drawings into a drawer and never showed anyone again. That night, lying in bed, she felt something weird in her chest, like her love was kind of embarrassing. Another day, during lunch, Samantha tried to hug her mom out of nowhere. Her mom was stressed out, frying something, and snapped, "Get off me, Samantha. Go cling to someone else, please." She backed off quick, embarrassed, burning inside. She got scared to try again. She didn't know it yet, but she was already learning that showing too much love pushed people away. She grew up feeling like she was just too much. Everything about her seemed over the top. Cried? She was being dramatic. Happy? She was silly. Scared? Oh, stop it already, girl. You're being annoying. At school, the teacher called her sensitive, sometimes clumsy. Once, she drew her family in art class. The teacher walked by, looked at it, and said, "You're always drawing this stuff. Try something else. You're too old for that." Samantha started hiding her sketchbook. At home, she had an older sister, Rachel. Rachel was quieter, calmer, got good grades. When Samantha messed up, her mom would say, "Look at your sister. She never causes trouble. Why can't you be more like her?" Samantha tried. She really did. But it always felt like she was doing something wrong. Too much energy, too many questions, got emotional too fast. Deep down, she started wishing she wasn't herself, because it seemed like being the right kind of person meant being anyone but her. When she turned 7, she had a birthday party. Almost no one showed up. Her mom said it was just bad timing, wrong weekend, but Samantha felt something else. She remembered a girl at school once saying nobody really liked her because she was too much. Too much what? She didn't know exactly, but she started thinking that being intense was a flaw, that being herself was too much. Another time, she got sick, had a fever. She stayed in bed, quiet, hoping for some affection. Her mom came by, touched her forehead, and said, "You've got to be strong. When I was a kid, I couldn't even slow down." Samantha closed her eyes. She wanted to disappear, not out of anger, but from the shame of just existing. Time passed. All those moments piled up like little stones in her pocket. None of them were a big deal on their own, nothing dramatic, nothing tragic, but all together, they weighed her down and hurt deeply. She started hiding inside herself, made up excuses to not show how she felt, stopped trying to please, but inside, she still wanted to be seen. She wanted a hug. She wanted to hear that it was okay to be who she was. But that never came. One of the moments that stuck with her happened at the end of the year. She got picked to sing in the school choir. She practiced for weeks. On the day of the performance, she wore her favorite dress and stepped on stage, sang her heart out, kept scanning the crowd for her mom but couldn't find her. Later, she found out her parents couldn't make it. Traffic, work, stuff that happens. But to Samantha, it turned into this solid truth inside her. Even when I try to shine, no one really cares. When she got home, she pretended it didn't hurt. But that silent pain tucked itself away in a corner where no one could see. And soon, she didn't want anyone to see it either. By 9, she started making excuses to skip birthday parties, said she didn't like loud places. But really, she was scared of not fitting in, scared of being ignored, of being there and still invisible. She thought maybe if she stayed quiet, it wouldn't hurt as much. So she started disappearing from herself. That's when the runaway mask started forming. It looked like shyness, like I'm chill, like whatever. But underneath was a trapped scream. She didn't know she was trying to escape the feeling of rejection. She just wanted it to stop. She just wanted to feel light, maybe even invisible, because the weight of existing was just too much for someone so small. Samantha's teenage years didn't start with any big change. It was more like a growing silence, an unease she couldn't name. She started 6th grade already feeling like she didn't belong anywhere. On the first day, she tried to smile at a new girl. The girl looked back, then quickly looked away. That old feeling crept in again, the same one she'd felt as a kid. That sense of being wrong, of being invisible, or worse, a bother. Eventually, she became part of a group at school, but she didn't really fit. The other girls had inside jokes, talked to each other in that close, effortless way, texted after school. Samantha was in the group more out of politeness than because anyone really wanted her there. One day, out of nowhere, they just stopped talking to her. No explanation. At lunch, she'd pretend she forgot her food so she wouldn't have to sit with them. Spent recess walking slowly to the bathroom, staring at her empty phone, or pretending to read a book she wasn't even looking at. It wasn't just sadness. It was a kind of shame, a constant question echoing in her head. What is it about me that makes people pull away? Samantha started staying quiet, smiling less, watching herself all the time. Teenage years, which for other people seemed like freedom, turned into constant tension for her. Everything she said or did was overthought. Every word ran through a filter. Is this going to come off as too much? Are they going to laugh? Will I seem stupid? In 8th grade, she fell for a boy in her class, kept that feeling bottled up for weeks. Then one day, she finally got the courage to send him a message, half joking, half serious. His response was cold. First, he took hours to reply. Then he sent a laughing emoji and wrote, "You? Thought it was a joke." She deleted the chat, locked her phone, lay on her side, and cried without a sound. Her chest felt tight. One more reminder that showing who she really was just led to pain. After that, she started avoiding anything that made her vulnerable. If someone asked what she liked, she'd say, "Oh, whatever." If she had to present in a group, she'd find a way out. She gave in, agreed, avoided anything that would draw attention to herself. And when she did open up by accident, the response was almost always the same: mockery, indifference, or silence. At an art presentation, she had drawn a self-portrait. It was symbolic, bold colors, faceless eyes. The teacher asked her to explain it to the class. Samantha stammered through it, explaining what it meant to her. A boy in class laughed. "What a trip, trying to be an artist now." Some kids laughed with him. The teacher said nothing. Samantha sat down, throat tight, face burning. On her way out, she tossed the drawing in the trash and promised herself she'd never open up like that again. At home, she tried to share how insecure she felt, said she was tired, didn't want to go to school. Her mom replied, "Oh, Samantha, stop being so dramatic. Go live your life. There's nothing wrong with you, girl." So she closed up even more, hid everything: what she felt, what she thought, what she wanted. She created this character, the chill girl, the laid-back one who's cool with everything. But inside, the emptiness just kept growing. She started hiding even from herself. Once, a friend from school shared a song she loved. The singer had a bold style with lyrics about identity and belonging. Samantha loved it, but she didn't say a word. Pretended she didn't know the artist, said it's not really my thing. Inside, she wanted to scream, but she had already learned that showing interest was dangerous. Showing emotion was risky. Showing who she was brought pain. Another time, a classmate made a comment about her outfit. "You kinda have a weird style, huh?" It was just a line, but it stuck to her, like the clothes were now something to be ashamed of. Samantha spent weeks trying to dress like everyone else. Nothing felt right. She didn't even know what she liked anymore. She was just trying not to mess up. And still, she felt wrong. Inside, there was this constant feeling of not measuring up, like she was always 1 second away from being rejected, ignored, or laughed at. So she started getting ahead of it, avoiding things before anyone could avoid her, giving up before being judged, shrinking herself before being rejected. At school, no one noticed. They thought she was chill, independent, kinda keeps to herself. But it was all a front, a mask, one that kept her away from anything that might hurt. Inside, Samantha was scared all the time. Not the loud kind of fear, like screaming or running. It was quiet, chronic, a fear that guided every move. Fear of being seen, fear of not being seen, fear of showing too much, fear of hiding too well. Just a knot. She never really felt part of anything. She joined things from the sidelines, laughed when others laughed, pretended to like what she was supposed to like, always adjusting her tone, her walk, her social media posts. But deep down, she had no clue who she really was. And the worst part? She thought that was normal, that everyone felt like that. Until the day she had to do a presentation in literature class. It was something she wrote herself, in secret. The teacher insisted she read it out loud. Samantha read it. Her voice was shaky, but she went through with it. When she finished, there was silence, one of those thick, heavy silences, and someone in the back said, "That was real." She didn't know what to do with that. She wasn't expecting warmth, didn't know how to handle it. She gave an awkward smile, cracked a joke, said it wasn't even that good, and went home with her heart all over the place. Part of her felt alive, the other terrified. The runaway mask that used to protect her now felt like it was choking her, but she wasn't fully aware of it yet. All she knew was that living in fear of just being was becoming unbearable. Now the mask is set, and Samantha steps into adulthood without knowing who she is or how to truly connect with anyone. Samantha grew up, went to college, got a stable job, rented a small but nicely decorated apartment. From the outside, she looked like a fully functioning adult. Low-key, responsible, apparently chill. But on the inside, she was just surviving. The wound of rejection was still there. It always had been. But now it hid behind a packed schedule, a safe silence, a life with little risk and not much affection either. At work, Samantha was that person everyone liked, but no one really knew. Helpful, stayed late, avoided conflict. Not out of ambition, but fear. Fear of drawing attention, fear of messing up, fear of letting someone down. She did everything right, but always felt like if she ever showed who she really was, she'd lose everything. One time, she got offered a promotion. It was a position she was totally capable of handling. Her boss called her in, praised her work, said her name was being considered. Samantha smiled, thanked him, but that night she couldn't sleep, felt a tight, breathless anxiety, and without fully understanding why, she turned it down. Said it wasn't the right time, that she needed to get more organized, that maybe someone more experienced would be a safer choice. The runaway mask spoke for her, because the idea of being seen, standing out, taking up space was terrifying. And once again, she sabotaged herself before she had a chance to succeed. Her relationships followed the same script. Samantha would say she didn't want anything serious, that she liked her freedom, that she enjoyed her own company. But the truth was, she was terrified of being vulnerable, of opening up and getting rejected. So she got involved with unavailable people. Short, lukewarm, shallow relationships. Whenever someone showed real interest, she backed off, found a flaw, made up an excuse. It was easier that way, alone but safe. There was one relationship that almost broke that pattern. A calm, kind guy who said he liked her for who she was. Samantha tried to let go, tried to believe it could work. And for a while, it kinda did. But little by little, she started doubting everything. If he gave her a compliment, she didn't trust it. If he said, "I like you," she thought, "He doesn't really know me." She felt embarrassed when he complimented her personality, her hair, her ideas. She downplayed it, made a joke, changed the subject. Because deep down, she didn't believe there was anything in her worth loving. One day, he said, "It's like you're hiding from me too." She didn't respond, and a few weeks later, she ended it. After that, she went right back to her safety zone. Home, work, books, shows, social media, and a life carefully kept in check. She knew all the places where she could hide, even from herself. But her body started speaking up. Anxiety attacks came out of nowhere. Insomnia, stomach aches, that tight feeling in her chest first thing in the morning. It was like life had turned into a minefield, and she no longer knew where it was safe to step. With friends, Samantha was the one who listened to everyone, gave advice, was supportive, always there, but never talked about herself. When someone asked, "And what about you?" she'd give a vague answer and change the subject. She was afraid of being too much, afraid of bothering people, afraid of wearing them out. In therapy, which she started after a panic attack on the subway, she said she didn't know who she was, didn't know what she liked. She'd say, "I feel like I'm a bunch of versions of myself depending on where I am, and none of them feel real." The therapist listened patiently, but Samantha avoided going too deep. Sometimes she'd get close to touching the pain, then pull back. She said she was tired, but she didn't know what of. At 30, Samantha looked around and saw a life empty of real connections. She had coworkers, acquaintances, people nearby, but no one really knew her, and she herself didn't know who was behind the armor anymore. The runaway mask wasn't just a disguise anymore. It was her way of living. She ran from intimacy, from depth, from spontaneity, ran from honest conversations, from serious relationships, from choices that exposed her. She even ran from her own pain, swallowed it, ignored it, numbed it. But that kind of life has a cost. On an ordinary Sunday, after a hectic week at work and a whole Saturday pretending everything was fine, Samantha broke down. It happened in the shower. Sitting on the floor with the water running, she cried like she was 10 years old and thought, I can't keep hiding anymore. That's when something different happened. An old friend she hadn't spoken to in years sent her a message, asked how she was doing. Samantha almost replied with the usual, I'm good, but this time she couldn't fake it. She said, I'm exhausted. Her friend called immediately, listened without judgment, just listened. And for the first time in a long time, Samantha spoke for real. Not a lot, but enough. She talked about the loneliness, the fear, the constant self-doubt. That conversation didn't fix everything, but it cracked something open, like a sliver of light breaking through a wall that had been shut tight for years. It was the beginning of a change. She started, little by little, noticing her patterns, realizing how she always picked the paths that kept her invisible, understanding that running was a form of protection, but also a prison. She began testing things, speaking up a bit more, saying how she felt, making small choices that chipped away at the character she'd always played. Healing didn't happen overnight. It didn't come with pretty quotes or easy answers. It came with tiny acts of courage, with stumbles, with fear, but also with a new kind of strength. The strength to stop running from herself. If you've made it this far, maybe something in you recognized parts of Samantha. Not the exact situations, but the unnamed feelings you've carried around for years. Because rejection rarely screams, it whispers. It shows up in the times you stayed quiet so you wouldn't bother anyone. In the moments you laughed nervously when someone complimented you. In that decision you didn't make just to avoid the pain of being judged. Or that relationship where you were there but never fully present. The wound of rejection has this quiet way of hiding behind phrases like, I'm fine, I don't need anyone, I actually prefer being alone. But deep down, what we really want is just to exist without fear, to be seen, to be accepted, to be loved exactly as we are. And maybe that's the most silent pain of all. Spending your whole life trying not to be too much and still feeling like you're never enough. Looking at Samantha's journey, you start to see that the mask she wore, the one built around running away, avoiding pain, hiding from getting hurt, it was born to protect her. But when you start living inside that armor every day, it stops being protection and becomes a prison. Maybe you're sitting there right now, feeling that same heaviness in your chest. Tired of constantly adjusting yourself, of hiding, of holding up a life that looks right on the outside but feels empty on the inside. And I want to tell you something as clearly as possible. You don't have to keep living like this. Transformation doesn't start with big, bold moves. It starts in the moment you recognize your pain without judging it. The day you choose to answer, not really, instead of I'm fine. In the courage it takes to say, this hurts, even if your voice shakes. It begins the moment you stop running and start listening to yourself. Yes, it'll be scary. Yes, it might feel like you're walking without a map. But little by little, with presence, with support, with small, honest choices, life starts shifting from the inside out. And you begin building a new story. not to erase the past, but so you no longer have to live trapped in it. Here's an important reminder. You're not broken. You're in process, and it's possible to begin again, one step at a time. If this video touched you in some way, brought you clarity, or cracked something open inside, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and share it with someone else who needs to hear this too. You might be the turning point in someone else's life, just like this story might have been for you. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's so much more coming your way to help you rebuild from the inside out with honesty, at your own pace, and with real support. And now I want to invite you to keep walking this path. The next video that's about to pop up on your screen is a continuation of this conversation. In it, we'll talk about how the fear of rejection keeps you from building deep relationships and how to slowly start changing that. It's the next step in the journey you just started. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.